Hi, everyone. Welcome back to VA Made Easy. I'm VA-accredited attorney and U.S. Army combat veteran Ed Farmer. So I know some of you out there have been denied VA claims from a bad C&P examiner. So he gave you a negative opinion. So one option as to fixing that negative opinion is getting an opinion of your own. You could get what's called, commonly referred to as a medical nexus opinion. Now, not all medical nexus opinions are built equally. Yeah, you could go out to your doctor and have them write a letter that says as likely as not related to service, but that might not be enough to get the job done. A good medical nexus letter addresses certain points, and that's what we're going to talk about today. What makes a good medical nexus letter? Let's get into it. So before we discuss what elements make up a good Nexus letter, let's discuss who you get it from. So first off, guys, I know there's a lot of online companies out there asking veterans to pay them for their opinions. I'm not saying all of them are bad. There's certainly legitimate ones. Just be careful who you use. If they are saying, hey, we won't charge you unless you win the case, I know that sounds enticing, but they might be operating illegally as unaccredited representatives. So I don't recommend using those companies. I recommend using someone who charges a flat fee and doesn't base their opinion off what happens in the case. Not even sure if that's medically ethical. Maybe we'll find out soon. On one of my upcoming episodes, I'm going to have two physician's assistants, combat veterans, come discuss their company that does provide medical nexus opinions for veterans. So stay tuned for that episode. But anyways, whoever you choose, just make sure they're qualified. I mean, if you're trying to service connect cancer to something you're exposed to in service, you don't want a podiatrist writing the opinion, right? You probably want an oncologist. I mean, 9 times out of 10, just a general medical doctor or even a DO would do just fine. In my practice, the opinions I get from my clients are the physician's assistants I was just referring to, and their opinions work great. They do a really good job of writing them and backing up their opinion, so the VA accepts them. You could even use a nurse practitioner. You guys probably know that nurse practitioners write a lot of the VA's opinions. And the courts have even said, in some circumstances, maybe a chiropractor or a therapist or a regular nurse could write the opinion. It all depends on your circumstances. So maybe your chiropractor is the leading expert in spinal injuries from military service. Then he might be a good resource. But my suggestion is try to stick with the medical doctors, the PhDs, physician assistants, and even nurse practitioners. Now, sometimes the VA wants you to use a specialist, especially with mental health conditions. So if you're trying to get service connected for a mental health condition, I would stick with either a psychologist with a PhD or a psychiatrist. And TBI also special providers. A psychiatrist is fine, or a neuropsychiatrist or a neurosurgeon is good for linking TBI. And of course, there's always like the audiologist if you want somebody for hearing loss or tinnitus. I mean, no matter who you pick, just one, make sure they are an expert in the field you want them to write an opinion about. And two, make sure they have experience in that. Make sure they've written a similar opinion in the past. The good Nexus companies will provide you some samples that they've done in the past. So, I mean, you're not picking a first year medical student here. You want somebody with experience that holds a little weight under their opinion. All right. All right. Now we discussed, who could write the opinions. Let's actually get into the meat and potatoes of what this letter should look like. Again, guys, this isn't just a 2-sentence letter. This should be in depth, starting with discussion of the review of your records. So you're going to want to provide this person with your C file, if available, at least all the pertinent evidence you've submitted, medical evidence, any lay statements, any military records you have. You must provide this person those records so they have a complete history of your disability. So tip number one, they should actually put in their report, I have reviewed all the pertinent records in the veteran's VA claims file. Now, with this information, they should establish the facts. So a brief history of your military service, how the disability incurred. Essentially, they're setting the background for why they think this disability is service related. This should include a discussion of the medical files and any relevant reports or tests. In other words, they're laying out the facts here in the history of the disability. All right, number three, the examiner's opinion should be based on the standard as likely as not. And we've talked about this a little bit in some of my other videos. And what that means is it's a 50-50 standard. So the examiner is going to say, yes, his PTSD is as likely as not related to the event in service. His sleep apnea is as likely as not related to the event in service. If they're not experienced with writing VA Nexus letters, explain to the examiner as likely as not just means a 50-50 chance. It's not as high of a standard as to a degree of medical certainty, which sometimes these doctors are used to writing that way. It's not even by a preponderance of the evidence, which is 51%. It's 50%. Make sure they use the right standard. And in their report, they actually should use the language as likely as not. His TBI is as likely as not related to his military service. That phrase should be in the report. All right, number four, the rationale. So guys, the conclusion is great. Yeah, as like it's not related to service. That's not enough to win your case. You need this person to explain why they think it's related to service and back it up with medical principles, medical texts, medical research. They need to support their opinion in some way. So this is sort of the because portion of the report. I think his cancer is from JP8 because JP8 contains benzene, which is a carcinogen, and he wasn't exposed to anything else. Those are the types of opinions you're looking for, guys. Make sure they explain themselves and back it up with citations and research. And fifth, if you had a bad VA exam, have your examiner look over the VA examiner's report and see if he could find any shortcomings in it. Maybe he misinterpreted some of the medical evidence or misinterpreted some research he put in his report. Have them address it. And lastly, guys, before you have that medical provider sign off, just make sure you review the report, make sure it's factually accurate, make sure they use the right standard, make sure they review all the correct medical evidence. If everything looks good, have them sign it. Have them include a copy of what's called their curriculum vitae. They refer to it also as their CV. It's basically an expanded resume. The CV is important for establishing what their credentials are. It should have their national provider identifier number on there, as well as their medical license numbers and their contact information. All right, guys, I appreciate you watching. Keep liking, keep subscribing, keep sharing. And as always, you have the power to change your VA claim.